that everyone's relatively familiar with the Apollo. I like to think that everyone is able to hear what I want to say. And I like to think that everyone's relatively familiar with the Apollo. It's kind of the bike that I have to credit everything for me, like starting this channel. It was a cross bike at the time. It originally started its life out as a hybrid. It's a little bit like that now. Right now I have it set up as a single speed hybrid. But I really haven't been doing much with it lately. Every so often I'll use it, but purely out of like, well, I haven't used this bike in a while. I should make an excuse to use it. And like setting it up as a single speed was sort of the idea for that. And I don't know, it didn't take off. I've got other stuff that I use more often, like the Tri-Cross, which you know has sort of taken over the gravel duties, the daily duties, the, you know, just being the overall badass bike in my lineup duties. And this has sort of fallen to the wayside. I'm really bad at trying to sell things. I tend to let things like fall into the ground and become one with earth again before I'll ever sell it. So today I am kind of going out of my way to try and get over that, build this into something that I feel that someone would maybe want, but I'm a little bit afraid of it because I feel like I'm going to build something that I want and then sell it. Sell something. Now, the plan's really quite simple. I've got a bunch of parts sort of sitting around from previous bikes that I need to do something with that I don't think I'm going to miss too much. Namely 9-speed parts. Older 1x stuff that I'm just, you know, not really using anymore that would sort of fit with this pretty well. I think my biggest concern is the fact that like someone not like us, like you and me who really like bikes, they aren't really going to get why this is sweet. So the plan is a 1x9 with a narrow wide 9-speed cassette, of course, and probably the best part is using this as a shifter. This thing is, you know, probably going to be the most reliable and simple setup that anyone could possibly have, although not sought after by anyone who's like shopping for new bikes. I have a feeling that by the time I'm done with this, that I'm probably not even going to want to sell this bike. And I'm just going to be sort of stoked on it again. Beyond that, I've got some wheels that are built 3-cross that'd be a little better for like, you know, the average rider instead of a radial laced, lightweight Mavic wheel. Not that it's a good Mavic wheel, I don't want to give it up yet. I'm not really sure why or how, but the spring in this just sort of failed and it just stopped holding tension on the chain. Cheap parts, I guess. I don't know. That's what I chalk it down to. So honestly, where this is at right now, even though I've recently like cleaned and done like a sort of wax to this frame, it's at like the perfect spot for me to actually do some like car-like stuff with it and maybe just clean it up enough that it looks even more new for someone who might want to buy it. So I'm thinking, because I just found it while I was scrounging looking for my tools, that it's like a good idea to maybe like rubbing compound and polish the frame just to like make it look a little better. Now I thought about it a little bit and I'm like, maybe it's not a good idea to actually use like straight up rubbing compound on, maybe it's not a good idea to use straight up rubbing compound on like a bike's paint, because I feel like maybe bike paint isn't quite as tough as the paint on a car. Would you stop knocking things over? that bike paint's not necessarily as tough as the paint on a car, so I'll just polish it and like flatten out that top layer, make it nice and shiny, and then throw some Pedro's Bike Lust over it, and that stuff works real nice. It's got like a bad smell, so you know it's working really, really well. But I have a feeling that I'm probably not going to finish this tonight, so I'll let it bleed over into tomorrow's vlog, where now I highly doubt that there's going to be enough light to actually see this, but that's okay. Oh, that green looks cool against the ground. That's really not the type of shot I wanted to take, so let's see if I can get it. Alright, it's too dark. I'll wait till tomorrow. Anyway, I basically have the bike done. All I need to do now is throw on a cable and a chain. That's it.
Day 2.
Oh, summertime. Summertime is sweet. Now, I know I said in yesterday's, or like the weekend vlog, that this bike would be done. It's not. Mostly for two reasons. Yesterday, after we finished our ride, where Ian was a psycho and wore thong sandals while riding 100k off-road, I might add, I got home and I was just like too tired to even bother. And I would prefer throw the cables on this, well, the one cable that needs to go on it, with like a proper set of cable cutters, because side cutters tend to smush things and I don't really have the... Anyway, the tools at the shop are the better tool for the job. So just threw the chain on this morning, gonna ride it to work. Might be one of the last rides I have with the bike that started the student cyclist channel, now called Spindatt, which is me. So I'm gonna enjoy this ride. Maybe. I don't know, I only have one gear and it's kinda hard to lock the door. I've been too busy vlogging. They built all that land out of nothing. The difference maker for cutting cables. And that little spike there opens those right up, gets rid of any sort of friction that a cable housing could give. That's the difference maker. So if you're creating your own cables, definitely keep that in mind. You can do it at home. Like, you could use a side cutter and like a lot of screwdriver sets will come with like just a pick. You can stick the pick in there and it'll open it up. That's what I'll do at home, but I work here, so you know, why wouldn't I? Had two choices of old derailleurs that I have. One being an old 9-speed Alivio that doesn't have quite as strong a spring, or the X7 that was on there. The X7 10-speed, trying to work in a 9-speed system. Even though this is friction, like a friction shift, non-indexed, it was not working the way that I would like it to. If I was gonna ride this bike, I would just deal with it and just kind of like put it into the gear that's the most quiet. But if someone else is gonna be riding it, I'd prefer they're not annoyed. So I did decide to change out to a 9-speed rear. So I did decide to change out to the 9-speed rear derailleur and to speak with this 9-speed, although friction shifter. So I'm gonna ride it a little bit and just see what it's like under real riding conditions. Of course, the stand is always different. It's actually probably going to be totally fine. So let's actually go over what this bike now has. Oversized aluminum bar with just a generic stem. My old Apollo frame, size medium. The carbon fork off the Tri-Cross with those Zertz inserts. The wheels off my old giant road bike. It has a SRAM X5 crankset with an XX1 narrow wide 38 tooth chainring. A 9-speed cassette, Alivio 9-speed derailleur, and Tektro Canty brakes. Oh, and some plastic pedals. It's like an accumulation of like pretty decent parts, all of which talk together really, really well. Super low maintenance build, easy to use. Don't have to worry about a front derailleur because front derailleurs are awful. I know for a fact the minute that I ride this thing home that I'm going to be like, oh, I don't want to get it. Anyway, all right, so here's a poor segue into well, my plans for this week. This week, Angela and I are actually headed to Toronto to do, well, a ton of different things, but really what we're there for is to go see a show. But we're headed up on Thursday. We're going to go to Matty Matheson's restaurant, Parts and Labor. We're going to go see a Jays game. We're going to go to a show. We're going to pack as much stuff as we can into this like mini little vacation because neither one of us really gets a whole lot of time off, especially in the summer. And we're just going to go enjoy ourselves in Toronto. So what do I have planned for today? Well, today kind of falls into like a number of different categories of Ian allowing me to build him another set of wheels. This one is for his fixed gear. We're using some DT Swiss R460s laced to some pretty decent track hubs. This was the original setup. A friend of ours was using these tubular Major Toms with a fixed gear for cyclocross all last season until his bike kind of, the frame was cracked in a... Anyway, Ian picked these up. He's going to use those rims for some sort of cyclocross build. We're building this for his track bike. And then beyond that... So right now I'm just kind of going around this wheel and giving each spoke a full turn on the nipple to try and just build up to where I want to be tension-wise. The nice part about front wheels and fixed gear wheels in general is there's no different length in spoke and everything is symmetrical, so you can actually run equal tension on every spoke. But the trick to making a wheel come out really nice is taking your time and doing it very small steps at a time. So it can be slightly tedious. This is easily the most tedious portion of a wheel build. I know that maybe as like a new builder or someone new to it who hasn't done it before, that the lacing seems like it's the scariest part. That's actually probably the quickest. It's this point. This is the point where you really need to test all your patience to make sure that a wheel comes out as beautiful as you can. I've got the rear wheel here. Like I said, the lacing it is easily the quickest part. As long as everything kind of like lines up. You want to have this nice gap. I don't know if that makes sense if you don't know necessarily what I'm talking about, at the valve hole, so that when you put your pump in, you can actually get it in without fighting it. Nothing worse than having the valve hole in between a cross like this. You always want it to be open, and you always want to try and line up that valve hole with the logo. That's just the type of things that, like, you know, wheel builders do to be like, hey, I'm good at this. But this is the quick part. It's the tedious work after that you kind of, you know, work at forever. It is now 10 to 6, closing pretty soon in 10 minutes. So that wheel is definitely not getting done today. I'm just gonna use the ride home to make sure that the Apollo is working well, and hopefully I can say goodbye to it soon enough. Moment of test. See if this thing works half decent. I mean, I don't have any doubts that it will. It's friction shift. It's obviously going to work well. It's gonna rain, so I better stop playing around with my video camera and get home before I get wet.